All right, everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And at the time of recording, I'm recording this early on Wednesday morning before I head out for work. We should be getting Pirate King Hondo's kit today. I do believe that kit comes out today, so it should be a big update. We'll get Hondo's kit. And at this point now, with Captain Silvo in-game, all of Hondo's requirements are now in-game, even if they aren't available to be farmed, as we still only have Etano on a node while we wait for everybody else to, again, get their respective nodes. One of the questions that I've seen come up quite a bit is players kind of asking, does Hondo, can I farm Hondo? Should I farm Hondo? And, if so, does it still make sense to farm anything else for the raid, or should we just focus on trying to get Hondo? And I was kind of, it's been something that I wanted to think about a bit, so I want to get this in front of you guys. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. This has been again, this channel has grown to levels I just never thought it would. Got to give our shout out to the channel members, as always, for their continued support. If you guys are ever interested in joining that channel membership, link below, along link to Discord. Again, these folks, even if I'm not streaming, they still get their roster reviews because they'll just reach out to me, they ask those questions, and even if it's not a roster review, sometimes it's just, hey, Phil, does this Omicron make sense? Where would this mod go? Where would that go? These folks get that. I really appreciate you guys again. Let's get in here. Let's talk about some Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Alright, so, like I said, we're getting Hondo's kit. At the time of recording, we should be getting it later today. With that, it starts to, lead into the question, does Hondo, if I haven't started working on the Order 66 raid, does Hondo make the most sense? It's a tough one, because, like I said, most of his characters aren't available yet. So, making that decision that you're going to go chase Hondo, you are putting yourself in to be really behind in terms of getting all those characters accessible, farmed up and accessible. Now, I'm not saying that it's a terrible idea, because pirates have shown to be very good in the raid, and you're going to get two pirate teams out of it. You're going to have the team under Maz Kanata, and the team that will fall under GL Hondo himself. The one thing you need to keep in mind here, however, is both of those teams have a conquest unit. Obviously, Maz right now, and then we had SM33. Where the hell is he? There he is. We had Smee in the conquest before that. Obviously, the Maz team will be the one that is the harder to put together because of her, because she's the most recent conquest unit, whereas you still have some time to get SM33 before you would potentially unlock GL Hondo. So you'll have, SM33 much earlier. Again, you'll probably be able to use him with Etano, whose leadership has been significantly increased and is a much better unit right now. So, I'm kind of okay with this approach, barring you have the conquest units to be able to, help your scores and help your teams. Because if you haven't started building one of the teams yet for this raid, you still have to shard farm them, you still have to gear them, you still have to Zeta them, and at that point, that starts to beg the question of, they're getting a little bit aged. Think about the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch themselves, when the new batch here, they were released in January of this year, so they're about 8-9 months old at this point. Are they still a useful team? Absolutely. Are they still a valuable team? Absolutely. Are they as valuable as maybe some of these others? Absolutely not. So I think the Bad Batch is one where I'm kind of struggling a bit to fully encourage players to go for if they haven't made some level of investment on them, because there's no end game. You're not leading to something where these pirates are. Now, if you are in a guild and they're begging you to get raid score, then much like I said at the start of the Order 66 raid, Hondo's not your answer to improve your raid score. Hey guild, I know you need me to get to this point, but I'm going to wait till Hondo's in the game. That's not a realistic expectation. But if your guild is like, all right, folks, we've been kind of scraping along, we'd like to start trying to improve our raid scores. We're not there yet, but we're trying to get there. Maybe pirates enter the conversation at that point. You can start to low star them, get them to relics, and now you're making an investment. You're improving your raid score while also improving your progress towards Galactic Legend Hondo Ohnaka, which, that to me is going to be the most important thing, is the gear that you're going to spend on, say, the Bad Batch. If you're really strapped on gear, that gear stops with them. where the gear you would put into Etano and Quiggled and Kix and Brutus and Vayne and Silvo and Maz, that all kind of leads into that Galactic Legend for Hondo. Maybe not Maz so much, but, Smee, he's a part of Hondo's team. So, again, I'm not completely saying, hey, just drop everything, farm Hondo. It's a conversation, right? It's a conversation I'm going to allow you to have, which is kind of changing my tune a little bit, where I was kind of hesitant on it. I was thinking about this a little bit, and the more I thought about it, I think as a player right now in the game, with what his requirements are, and maybe what they are and what they aren't, players have access to materials now. Maybe this is something that I've had to learn, is that people have far more access to materials than I remember having when I was at those levels. If you have the ability and you have the mindset that you want to go for Hondo, that could be really, really helpful for your account. You could have him in the raid for a decent amount of time. He's going to be a character that you're going to need in Conquest. And we're starting to even see these lovely pirate galactic challenges coming into the game, which is just so much fun, right? We love these things that you can't even, you got to just scrape through with what you can, right? But, we're getting those. And that's only going to kick up. That's only going to continue to increase. That's only going to continue to be something that we're going to be getting, except it's going to continue to bleed its way into Conquest, which Conquest becomes a whole other animal entirely. We're already seeing pirate feats in Conquest, but let alone ones that are going to be gated behind our Pirate King Hondo. So, again, I'm just kind of trying to get you guys in the mindset that it's okay to farm that. At the same time, if you said, hey, I'm not going to do Hondo, does it still make sense to farm the Bad Batch? Sure. Now, I'm focusing on Bad Batch and Hondo because Bad Batch is the one team that I think a lot of us have been like, what's their reason? What's their purpose? We've really ragged on them pretty hard. And they're beginning to remind me a bit of the Inquisitors. Inquisitors, before even Grand Inquisitor came into the game, were one of these teams that were pushed just like the Bad Batch have been. They got their Datacrons, they were always in Conquest, and galactic challenges every other time, and you're like, oh my gosh, it just got so old. You were so sick of seeing them everywhere. And then Grand Inquisitor comes out. They still weren't that good, and we're like, what the hell? This is terrible. And then all of a sudden they're needed for Reva, and now we're all piling on. I'm just beginning to wonder if CG doesn't kind of pull a fast one on us and start requiring the Bad Batch for something. That's a bit of a hot take, but it would be on point with how CG has performed in the past, where they have definitely sort of pulled fast ones on us, where all of a sudden this team is, super necessary. And especially one like this, where I think it had the lowest adoption rate of the new Order 66 raid units. I think a lot of players had the Jedi Vanguards ready to go, and everybody built the Dark Side clones, which then kind of led into the sunken cost fallacy for Depa Billaba, where, okay, I've already wailed on the clones, I may as well wail on Depa Billaba and Temple Guard, or I may as well get these guys ready to go because that's what I want to do. So I can kind of see that happening a bit there. Obviously, the Pirates will have a pretty high adoption rate comparatively because they're leading towards a Galactic Legend, so everybody will kind of hop on board with that. So that kind of leaves the Bad Batch just as this lone team kind of hanging out there, where you're kind of like, all right, what are we fully doing here? And again, all kind of speculation here that Hondo becomes super accessible, right? Because if the Hondo's characters go on nodes that are really tough to get, and they're gonna keep you from being able to get the resources you need, maybe that's a conversation to have. Because it is 6 marquee units. It's not cheap. Now, the nice thing being, you can stop farming Etano at 5-star because you don't need him beyond Relic 3. If I, hide the fat face here for a sec. Where's my webcam? Hide the fat face. Come on. There we go. You don't need him beyond Relic 3, right? He's a Relic 3 requirement, but you're going to want him higher because he's going to go in the Maz Kanata team, which should be a probably pretty good team. Just based on what we've seen of them in Conquest, they look to be solid enough. They've got seem to be a pretty, have a lot of survivability, but again, Jerry's still out. So yeah, this has just been a topic that I've been struggling a bit. If you guys can tell by the rambling, right? I've been struggling with this. I've been trying to understand and figure out where I think each of these teams belongs, how I can recommend them to you from both an endgame player perspective and, okay, maybe you're not in the endgame, but you're thinking about what the next logical step for your account could be. So a lot of it kind of circles around where your raid prep is. if your guild is already hounding you to get raid score, Hondo's not the answer. But if your guild's kind of set in its raid score ways, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'd like to get a little bit more. Would it be worth farming the Bad Batch, or would it be worth farming Hondo? I'd probably go with the Hondo route. Like, if you're at that point where you've hit the required score that you need for the raid, that's where I think Hondo and these pirates begins to make a lot more sense. And I hope that encourages you as well, like, kind of eating my own words a bit here, but I think this should encourage you that as expensive as Hondo is, it is on characters out, himself, the OG Hondo, that's a good unit, right? That is a good unit. You can use that with a bunch of different teams. But like Kenobi, General Skywalker, Count Dooku, those higher relics, they're all characters that you would have already had up there anyway. Dooku was a relic requirement for Lord Vader as it is. And then Relic 8 on Scavenger Ray, listen, it's not fun, but she's at least Relic 7 in your, if you build Ray. Bosk to Relic 8 was definitely a bit like, ooh, we go back to that journey guide. Sorry, I'm in the wrong area. Go back to that journey guide, Bosk to Relic 8 was like, you say, ooh, but he's a good pilot. He's in the Houndstooth. That's a relic you're not going to regret. So when I kind of sat there and I looked at it, I was like, you know what? I don't really regret or hate any of the characters. Like, was it fun leveling up Ezra Bridger? No. Is it going to be fun doing Veteran Smuggler Chewbacca? No. But I didn't hate a lot of the other relic requirements. Scavenger Ray, a Relic 8 could be bad. I would have, preferred to put that on somebody else maybe. But, listen, it could have been a lot worse. And I'm kind of eating my words there a bit, right? I'm kind of coming clean on that. If you're in a position where, again, final thought, going in circles, but trying to, get this across. I think the biggest thing here is almost a bit of recognition on my part that I think this character is a little bit more accessible than maybe I and others have given it credit for. As brutal as you say 6 marquee units are, right? They are. The Bad Batch is 5 and isn't leading you anywhere, right? Your clone troopers are 4. Mace Windu and Jedi Vanguard, right, is 2, is 6 for Mace Windu. It's not like it's a simple thing to do. And again, I'm kind of looking at this from the raid perspective, as this raid is still going to be around for like 10 more months. This raid is going to last a year, which this raid came in July of 25, so it should last until June of 2026. So there's a long time still to get a return on this raid. So for those of you in that area where this is going to start to be the push, that's where I think Hondo enters the equation. If the raid isn't a push for your guild, or it's a push right now, Hondo not as much of that like option to get there, because you either need to be improving it right now, or your guild doesn't care and you're not even doing this, so it doesn't matter because you're like 1 million GP, so let me know your thoughts, guys. I hope this kind of gives you some perspective on the way that I'm thinking. Almost not quite permission to farm Hondo, but permission to think about it, permission to kind of say, hey, you know what, and you don't need my permission. What the hell am I saying? But kind of this idea that, hey, there is an end game. This could be valuable to you. Let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.